Hey, this is Tonks, and you're listening to Beyond the Static.
Thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Static, the podcast introducing you to your next favorite band. I'm your host, Dwayne. Follow Beyond the Static on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, and TikTok at Beyond the Static Podcast. You can also join our mailing list and have these episodes sent straight to your inbox. If you enjoy the show and feel gracious, you can also buy me a coffee. If not, a like or comment on YouTube is much appreciated. A 5-star review on any platform would be awesome because, in the words of my hero, Bomani Jones,
You only give us 4 stars. I'm inclined to believe you are a hater.
Ian from Tonks is here. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Ian from Tonks. Play bass and Dryjacket, guitar and singing in Tonks. That's it. From South Jersey originally. I live in Philadelphia now, and play mostly in Philadelphia, at least once a month. I pick up a lot of shows in the area.
Honestly, you're one of the first friends that I've had. I was having this thing where I was scared to ask people that I know personally, because I wanted it to be at I wanted it to be at a certain, I don't know, embarrassing myself, quote unquote, in front of strangers is easy.
People in your circles are always going to be the first ones to kind of be like, "You're doing what?" Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
they're a little bit I want to say it's immediately rude about it, but they want you to kind of be who they see you as, and it's you try to do something new, and they're like, "You're doing what?" And it just doesn't always feel comfortable. You know what I mean? It's damn, bro, just just be hype for me or something. I don't know.
Right.
Gas me up a little bit. Yeah.
I remember when a few years back I did some stand-up open mics, and one of the first jokes that I told is it was along the lines of people, stand-up comedy isn't one of those dreams that people support. They're always going to bring up that terrible knock knock joke you told in the 5th grade, right. and nobody's going to be Johnny's playing minor league baseball. His swing was atrocious at 10 years old. What do you mean? Stuff like this is always something that they're trying to tear down. And it's crazy. Everybody wants you to just kind of settle into the life that they settled into, and it's not for everybody.
Right. Yeah. Especially when you're doing stuff like this, when you're older, it's people are wait a minute, if you didn't start doing that 10 years ago, why are you doing it now? And it's all right, relax. Life is long. You got to fill it with shit you like doing. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, I feel the same way. I get the same, and sometimes it kind of seeps into my own, psyche, with, photography and videography, stuff like that. A lot of things, I don't know how much of my about my past that but I'm in drug and alcohol recovery now, so a lot of things in my 20s were, I'd say, we'll call it stunted growth. So now that I'm in my 30s, almost 40, it's I still look up and I'm I still have what, at least 30 good years to do something and have have this career or whatever it is. And it's not I'm not completely falling apart. I mean,
Yeah, no, I mean, as long as you're alive and want to do something cool, you just do it. You know what I mean? I hear what you mean by 30 years, but also I don't know, I follow this I forget what the dude's name is, but and there's a lot of cases like this, but I follow this dude on TikTok he's got to be in his 70s, and he just puts out really good music, and I just am kind of damn, he didn't really do it his whole life, and now he's just oh, I'm going to put these songs out, and I never, I had a career, I never really tried it, and they're great, and I listen to them, I follow him on Spotify and stuff like that, and it seems he has more monthly listeners than I do and stuff like that, and it seems people are connecting with it, and it's yo, just do whatever you feel like doing whenever you feel like doing it. There's no rules.
I mean, I met you through Joe, your bandmate in another band, and I met Joe because we were in a band together. So after years of like kind of, I don't even know what to say, but call that time of my life, but like, you know, and my last interview was a guy named Pat. He was in a band called With Our Teeth, like way back. Like we used to play with them, like Joe and I, and we used to
Love
play with them a lot. And he's about my age, and you know, he just put out a new record. It's awesome. You know, I put something out a few years back, and it's just one of those things where at this, I mean, to think back, even back then, like you never really started this to like get to go platinum and win a Grammy. You know what I mean? It's like,
right. Yeah.
you know, kind of just want to do something and be like, I did that and I'm proud of that. And nobody could take that away from me.
Yeah. Well, no one, you know, if you're just like an adult and you're doing woodworking in your garage, no one says like, "Hey, why are you doing that?" Like, "Oh, aren't you kind of old to be doing woodworking in your garage?" No one says that. So to me, it's just kind of like, which is, I mean, the guys in Dry Jacket, both Adam and Joe, do like woodworking stuff, like carpentry and whatever. And for me, I'm like, I know you guys like doing that as your side thing. It's like, for me, I like writing music and that's it. Like,
Right.
people like when you're a kid, it's like, oh, dads are like tinkering away in the garage or whatever on projects. And it's like, for me, I'm like, I tinker away at just writing songs, you know? So it just, you can do it for forever. And maybe sports is a little different. Like a lot of times, like you hit a certain age where you age out of it and you have to kind of pivot and get into coaching or whatever. But with music, you can just do it until you die, which is nice.
I mean, with that being said, it's kind of the, would you say that's just like Tonks is kind of born out of just a compulsion to just do the thing, even when you're not doing it with the main group of guys?
Yeah, totally. Dry Jacket's great. I plan on being with them forever for as long as Joe wants to do stuff. But I think, you know, just kind of had like the George Harrison feel where I was just like, I've got songs. They're definitely not Dry Jacket songs. And I just always have to see it through. And like, I need to just put stuff out without, you know, any massive expectations. I do take it very seriously. But at the same time, it's like, no matter what the capacity, I'm going to do it. Like, I don't know if people like it, cool. If they don't like it, that's whatever. But I am going to just keep trying to write good songs and play shows just because that's kind of what I do for fun. And Dry Jacket, like, there's long periods of time where we don't do anything. And when we got dropped from Hopeless, it was a long time ago now, I was just like, well, I want to keep playing shows. I want to keep doing stuff. And if we're not going to be doing this full time, I want to be able to just say yes to shows, you know, and it's partially why it's an acoustic project, because I can say yes to things without having to ask anyone, you know? So people will say, "Hey, do you want to play this show?" And I'll just say yes. And then I'll find out if there's going to be a band with me or not, you know? So if I want to play it, I'm like, well, I'll play it by myself. And if you don't mind, like, I could bring my band with me. Like, I was like, does it matter if you want full band or just me? And they're like, oh, whatever you want. And I'm like, perfect. So I'll just say yes to it and then ask which one of my people can make it, you know?
And so that seems to be working out for you. I saw that you mentioned on, was it one of your online platforms, that you are a full band now with like some rotating members and
Yeah.
permanent ones?
Yeah. So I have a million group chats and it's impossible to keep track of. I'm not very good at organizing things. I'm very much, I just fly by the seat of my pants. Everything's last minute. But I have two official members of Tonks. I always say like Tonks LLC, like people that are financially invested in it and like like get royalties and stuff like that. But it's me, Tom Mallory, who was in Ampersand, and he was in a band called Outlast. He played in a lot of like hardcore bands over the years, and he was in Wild Dust. And then the other member is Derek Robbins, he was in a band called Wild Dust. Both guys I went to high school with. Tom was a grade above me. Derek was 2 grades above me. And they are just kind of in the same mindset. It was like some of my friends that were like, hey, we like playing music. That's it, period. There's no thinking about, politically what shows are the good ones to play, which ones are the bad ones to play. Like, it's like, oh, I don't know if that show's going to be any good. These guys are just like, whatever. We don't care. A show's a show. If there's 2 people there, if the other band doesn't sound anything like us, it doesn't matter. Like, they'll just play it, and it's a worthwhile thing to do on like a Friday night versus, what else? Like, go out and drink. It's like, well, maybe just go and play a show and hang out with your friends, even if you're older. Like, I'm 32, and it's like, well, I'm not doing anything else if I don't have any family obligations or things like that. Friday night's a good time to just hang out with your guys and do something fun together, collaborate on something. But then I also have my friend Christiana Benton. She had a project called The Still Small Voice. And I forget exactly how I met her. I think that she was releasing music through No Hope Records. And at the time I was just like hanging out with a lot of No Hope bands, and I heard her stuff and was like, oh, this is awesome. It's like Phoebe Bridgers. Her songs are very like 4-chord traditional songwriting, which is what I'm all about. I love kind of like 70s, James Taylor, Carole King, traditional like verse, chorus kind of songs. And she just like checked all those boxes, and I was like, hey, do you want to like hang out and talk music? So we became friends, and pretty much not my first record, but all of the things I've done since my first record, she has sang harmonies on it. And she's like, I see her as a member of Tonks, depending on what the restrictions are to shows or how many people, like how big a stage is. It's like, if it's like a little tiny show, I don't always ask her, but anytime there's like a serious show that I'm excited about, I always ask her to come and be a part of it. And then my roommate and childhood friend, Rob, he plays piano in Tonks, and he's kind of the same thing. It's like, he doesn't want to commit to it financially, but if you're not doing anything else, he's like, I'll definitely come and play shows whenever. I'll, help. If you want to go into the studio, I'll record piano. But he just doesn't, contribute financially, or I'm sure if we eventually go on any like longer tours, he might not be a part of that, but it's nice having people to do it while they're here. Our drummer, Tommy Wilner, is Brad from Dryjacket's older brother. And he's played drums on 3 songs that we recorded. And he's the same thing. He's like, I don't want to take the band thing seriously, but as long as I'm available, he's like, I'll always like come and help out. So it's good to have all that. At some point, it would be cool to have some more financially invested members of Tonks, but we'll see. That might just take some more, maybe a couple more records and maybe a few more like decent shows or tours under the belt or something to kind of like motivate people to want to be a part of it. So yeah, lots of people in and out.
Nice. It's funny, you're mentioning the more like traditional, straightforward songwriting, and from what I know about Dryjacket, that's not really the bag, right?
No, Dryjacket's great. I am a fan of Dryjacket, and I get to be in the band, which is sick. Joe's an amazing songwriter. But everything he does in his songs are kind of unique and like a lot of serious like musicianship goes along with it. And I can't write the way Joe does, and I don't really want to try to write the way Joe does. I've been lucky enough to kind of like write a few songs in a Dryjacket sort of style that have now made it into our list of songs. And like we all co-write together, but I tend to be the one to like drag it down and make it a little bit more simple, which is easy playing bass because it's like he's doing something crazy and I'm like, all right, well, what if the bass part was just like literally like a 4-chord progression underneath of it, you know? So I can kind of like work it that way. But the stuff that I like about Dryjacket, like Joe's melodies are unbelievable, and the people will say like, "Oh, it's Midwest emo, it's math rock, it's whatever." But the things that I hear and take away from it are in his melodies. Like to me, there's a lot of like Death Cab and like even like early like emo stuff, like I don't know, like Sunny Day Real Estate or stuff like that.
Now you got them stuck in my head. Awesome.
Yeah. There's like things about Dryjacket, and I think that this is what was kind of when people were talking about us early on. It was like, oh, it's like Midwest emo, it's like math rock, but there's something about it melodically that's like accessible, and that's kind of what I like about it. Is Joe, even though like there's some time signatures and stuff like that with Joe's like melodies, he tends to just really write really great melodies that tie everything together in a way that you don't always even notice that there is a weird time signature because you're so focused on the melody that it just kind of makes everything blend together really well.
Obviously, other than having more like control, like when you write for Tonks versus when you write for Dryjacket, are they like collaborative processes? Are they like, is everything just kind of like, here's the song, guys, here's your, like, figure out your parts? Like, how does that, like, what's the difference in working on the two projects? Like the biggest difference that stands out to you?
So I would say that the way that Joe writes for Dryjacket is like, I'm going to say this backwards. For Tonks, pretty much I'll write the songs, bring them to the band. And for most of the time, so it's like Windows Down and Dying, I just wrote on my own. Finger on the Pulse, I wrote on my own, wrote all the instruments with help from Eric McNeilis, because he like produced, engineered.
He's a big help.
Yeah, and he played drums on it, and I can't really play drums, so yeah, so he did all the drum parts on that record, which is great. But yeah, I would basically, for Windows Down and or for Finger on the Pulse, I was like, I really want to just throw the kitchen sink at this, like throw a bunch of instrumentation at it. I'm like, can we start out demoing, and then we'll sort of evolve into the recording process. So went to his house, demoed everything out like pretty simply, and every time I would like go home, he would send like what he had to me. So it would be like I would record the acoustic parts, he would send it to me, and then I would just play along at home. I would write the bass parts, write the leads, and do everything kind of like bit by bit before I was able to record on my own. Like I wasn't really writing demos at the time. I was just doing like voice memos and stuff like that. So we demoed, and that was like almost a year process. And then at some point I was like, all right, I think I have everything I need. Time to start moving into like the real recording process. So some of the stuff from the demo stayed, but pretty much we just went into Gradwell, re-recorded all of the acoustics to sound like a little bit nicer, did the piano stuff. Anything that was like MIDI or like synth or anything like that just kind of got pulled over. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. It was just two guys hanging out, meeting up, whenever we could, once every other week or something like that, to get in a couple hours of demoing or recording. So I did everything. But then as I escalated and kind of, now that I have a band, I will just write the entire song, bring it to them, and then trust them to just kind of make their own decisions. Because I've been playing with those guys for such a long time, or know them well enough that, like, Derek is a great songwriter, great bass player. And I'll just kind of say to him, like, yeah, this one's going to be like the song's straightforward, but the bass part, kind of like, let it be a little syncopated, give it some, like, go as crazy as you want to go on it, you know? And same with Tom. Every now and then I'll have one spot that's like an important guitar part, and I'll say, like, hey, can you play this? And then whatever else you want to do, like, just do it. Which is nice to be playing with people that I trust musically, that I can just say, like, oh, you guys have good intuition. Yeah, so that makes it so much easier for me. And really, like, I don't, I'm not very picky. I trust my melodies and the song that I wrote, so that anything that those guys do will just be like icing on the cake, you know? Like, it's decorative, and each of them kind of brings their own thing to the table. So the root of the song is good, and then I just look at those. The rest of the band comes in and, like, decorates the song almost. You know, I show up with a cake, and they're just like, all right, and then they put the icing on it and make it cool. But then with Dryjacket, what I'm describing now for Tonks, Joe kind of does that, I would say, like 20 to 25% of the time. But then, like, 75% of the time, he'll come with like a couple riffs and say, how can we turn this into something? So he'll come with the riffs, and we'll say, all right, we'll play riff 1 4 times, play riff 2 4 times, and we'll just loop that for a little while until everyone comes up with a part. And then he'll be like, all right, and then we need to somehow get into this third part. And a lot of times, like, he'll say, I'm not really sure how they're going to go together, but let's figure it out. So it's almost like more problem solving, where he'll come up with these, like, cool riffs, and as a group we have to kind of make it work and make them all, you know, coherent. And those are fun. They're a lot of work, and it takes, like, a lot of you know, with songwriting, there's always some politics involved. So someone will say, like, oh, what if we do this? And then everyone's like, I don't know. And then maybe they'll fight for that part, you know? Like, Brad will say, I think we should do, like, what if we did this in halftime, and, like, whatever. And we'll be like, I don't know. And then he'll have to kind of defend why he thinks that, you know, it sounds good or whatever. And same with all of us. Like, we'll all make, you know, propositions, and then we kind of talk about why it's good or why it's, like, not the best choice. So those are fun. I think those kind of help us grow. But easily the best Dryjacket songs are when Joe comes to us and says, here's the song, totally done. Like, he'll even send us the demo or something like that, and all of us are just kind of like, damn, that's a great song. And it makes it so much easier for us. But also at the same time, like, we do still write our parts, but Joe will just send us the full song, and he'll be like, here it is. Like, everyone just play what you're going to play over it. Yeah, and that's it. So there's levels to how Dryjacket songs get made. Some of them we got to work a little harder for. Some of them Joe just puts it right down in front of us, you know.
But you said something very important, I think. Like, the why to a lot of things. I find myself, and I judge other music on it, I'll say too. And whenever I was writing, not just music, but like anything that happens around me, I'm always like why? Like, why are we doing this? And sometimes it gets you in trouble, because some people just want you to be like, don't ask me why, just do it. But, like,
Right.
the why always seemed super important and critical to me, because like, building off of that and like knowing a direction seems like if you don't know where you're going, it's almost like it feels like you're headed towards a crash or something like that. Like what are your thoughts on like maybe not just in music, but like in life in general of like the why of like why of am I phrasing this in a way that makes sense to you?
Yeah, I think I understand. My why is kind of a like internal thing, and I think I kind of answered it before. For me, it's literally, you kind of touched on it as well. For me, it's just kind of like mastering a craft all the time. Like it has nothing to do with um, like I feel like all musicians have like a little bit of narcissism in them, and when people are like, oh yeah, it's for, if people get a good feeling out of the music, then it's worth it, and for me it's like i i I can't say that that's the case. It's almost like when people have a kid, you have to kind of say like, I'm not having this kid for any other reason besides the fact that I want it, And with music, it's like the only reason why I do anything I do with music is just because I feel like it and it's rewarding to me. And it's like just helped me in my like personal growth just throughout life. And it gives me something to do. There's not really anything externally that I do Tonks for, I play music for. It really is just one of those things that you need a little bit of meaning in your life, I guess. And it gives me a reason to always be like improving on something. Um, and who knows, like maybe I get to bring it with me in my next life. You don't really know what's going on with that. So I always just kind of have the feeling that, like I've been writing songs since I was a little kid. I was like either 9 or 10, and it always felt like it came easier to me. And I never felt like not a lot of other people were writing music, and they're like, "Oh, how do you do that?" And I was like, "I don't know, I just do it." So maybe a little piece of me is like, well, I'll just keep working really hard at it, and maybe like I'll get to bring some of it into the next time around, and it stays somewhere in your conscious or somewhere in your being. So yeah, that's it. That's my why. All selfish reasons.
I don't know if selfish is like exactly the way I would say it. I mean,
In a non-harsh selfish,
yeah.
a decent selfish.
I guess they say that there's nothing that's like there's no such thing as like true altruism because, you know, and I feel the same way and not just about music but doing good things in general. It's like I do them because I like the way it makes me feel and because I want good things to happen in return. I want people to see me as someone that they can be good to, and like so I'm good to them.
Right.
It's almost like it's kind of like completing the circle in a way.
Yeah.
And so yeah, before we were talking about the why and all of that, do you feel like with this project there's like an overall like message or feeling that you are trying to get across, and I like not necessarily that you're trying to make anybody else feel, but this like that is sort of like the backbone or common thread of the project?
Not really. Not message wise. I think that I'm less of a writer or lyricist than I am a musician. Um, I like coming up with like the aesthetic feel of it, and I know what projects I like. Like I Before I started Tonks, I knew it was going to be like acoustic. Um, I kind of would say to people that it's like, oh, just kind of like imagine like Mazzy Star, but with just like a dude singing, I guess, Like it's just kind of like I wanted something that was singer songwriter. That's a little bit. There's like some elements of like magic to it. I've always been like a big fantasy guy. Growing up, I was a big like, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter kind of like enthusiast. So if you like look at a lot of the Tonks stuff, you'll see a lot of like ethereal themes, stars, woods. Like the first one, it's like there's a big like there's people in a rowboat like pulling the moon down. Finger on the Pulse is the painting that's on the front of that album is a painting of my great grandfather did of his town in Farsund in the south of Norway. So I kind of like all of the imagery and all of the music. I want to be very like earthy, woodsy, natural kind of feeling. So that stuff is more important to me versus any messages that people would take from it. It's more about feeling than it is about any specific messages.
It's funny that you mentioned Lord of the Rings. I just started working on the Rings of Power.
I haven't started yet. Yeah. I'm a little nervous, but I'm sure I'll like it. But still, I was saying to someone recently, I'm like, the reason why the Lord of the Rings like trilogy, because I didn't even really like The Hobbit that much, but the original Lord of the Rings trilogy was like so. Part of the thing that made it so great is it's like it was all practical effects for the most part. And you could tell that the cast just like loved each other. Like it seemed like it was like summer camp and they were all just like hanging out, having a good time in New Zealand in like a beautiful outdoor kind of like landscape. And that like, that's like what comes through to me when I watch it is like, oh, it must've been so nice to just be out there in nature with these people. Like, it was an adventure for them as much as like the story is an adventure, So, and today everything is like just throw them in front of a green screen and, they're like just hanging out in like some big warehouse in front of a green screen, which is less exciting,
Yeah, I can't really tell the difference. Well, I mean, unless it's like poorly done.
Right.
So the reason that I hit you up to begin with is, I saw that you were pumping out some new stuff, or you start dropping new singles. So what's going on with you future wise? Like, what are you working on? What do you or what can you tell people? Or what's coming up for Ian?
Yeah, I don't have any, I'm not tied to any labels or there's no mystery. I'll tell anyone anything about Tonks, but we pretty much, I can crank songs out. So anytime the guys are ready to go into the studio and help, pay for recordings and stuff, I could literally go into the studio like once a month, once every other month or something like that. 'Cause I always have new music like lined up and ready to go. We did 2 songs with our friend Connor Priest. We worked on them at Gradwell. He actually, I wish I knew what studio he works out of now, but he just moved. He's been living in Jersey City and he usually operates out of New York, but he'll come back down every now and then and work out of Gradwell, where he used to work, where he lived when he lived here. But he was a friend and we're just like, he's someone that I really trust with writing and producing. I kind of like, it's nice to be working with someone that I know to be like a really good writer. So it's like they kind of, while you're working with them, they sort of become an extra member of your band. Like working with Eric McNeilis, he was kind of like the only other member of Tonks at the time when I was like working on the first record. Not an official member, but he contributed enough that I'm like, oh yeah, that record has like Eric's fingerprints all over it. You know what I mean? In like a good way. Like it was nice to have him contribute. And then with my friend Connor, again, we went to high school together, and he was always one of the other people in my group that was a songwriter himself. So when you can have someone work on your music that is a songwriter, I really just trust his opinion on stuff. So we did 2 songs with him. They turned out being like really great. We released them like a couple months apart. And that's kind of my goal, is to just keep working with new people and see how it goes. I have a song that I'm going to be probably announcing on Monday. I literally just like uploaded it to DistroKid today, but I have a song coming out called 96 Camry. And I will have, this is the second time I've tried this, but I recorded this song on my own, just here. Oh, actually, no, not here. I recorded this one I used to live in Westmont, and I recorded it while I was in Jersey, and it's been sitting around, and I've brought that to the band, but this one's like a little bit more of a slower song. And I wasn't really able to like articulate what I fully wanted. So what I ended up doing was I took this song, brought it over to I have another friend, Eric, and he works out of it's called Richmond Studios in Port Richmond. It's like a big church. They work out of like the upstairs of a Lutheran church, which is pretty cool. But I brought the recording that I did, like my own demo, I brought to him, and I said, hey, can you just touch this up and like mix it so it sounds good? And then maybe me and you can just like he's a drummer. So I was like, can you put some really like dead, like 60s, 70s sounding drums on them? I'm a really big like Andy Schaaf fan. And like Men I Trust is another like indie band that I really like. And they just have these drums that are like super dead and right on top of you. And I was like, how do I get that sound? Like every drummer that I play with mostly like come from punk backgrounds, and the drums are always big. They're always, but this song needed to be like very quiet and small. So I went to this guy, Eric, and he was like, oh, well, what we got to do is like take the back off the kick drum, take the backs off all the toms to get them like nice and dead sounding. So that sound doesn't like get trapped and reverberate. It just comes right out and dies, which is nice. So he added these drums to this song that I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted. It kind of sounds like just like Fleetwood Mac drums too. Like when I say like,
Oh, wow.
60s, 70s kind of stuff. Super groovy, just like in the pocket. And I went to him. He did the drums, mixed the song. I also re-recorded bass with him, and it sounds great. It's going to be really different, but yeah, it's the second time I've tried that. I also did. I have a song out called "Segways and Simulations." That sounds very like Postal Service. It's like a lot of like, beeps and squeaks, just like keyboard kind of sounding music. And with that one, I gave it to Eric McNeilis and was like, can you just, mix this so it sounds like a real song? And I re-recorded vocals with him for that one. But it's cool. I've just been figuring out this new way that I can just write music on my own. I can record it, pass it over to an engineer, and just say, hey, I recorded this. Can you just make it sound nice? It really just kind of makes my ability to put music out, it makes it a lot easier, which is cool.
Nice. This is when I write stuff down, because you said something and I was just like, I want to ask more about that, and now I forgot. But nah, it's a I remember now. So with how do you find that the times that you go out by yourself as an acoustic act, and then you have this catalog of songs that have a band, like how do you find that the songs are received, like when you play them acoustic, to, like from the people that, like, let's say somebody hears your stuff online, they come, they see the acoustic version, or then somebody that sees you live and is like, oh, I like that, and then go online and hear the full band version. Like, How do you feel the crossovers get received?
I think people definitely love the full band version. And it also depends on the song. Like, for the most part, if I'm playing through them by myself, I don't think they get the same kind of like wow as they do with the when I bring the full band with me. People are like, "Wow, that's amazing! Like, you guys are great." Um, because that's kind of what it is. Like, I don't think that I'm like an amazing singer or amazing guitar player or anything, but I'm a decent songwriter. So when everything kind of comes together and you get to hear like the full imagined thing, I think that's when it's at its best. Um, but on the other hand, like songs from Windows Down and Dying, I have two songs from that record that people like particularly like. One being called Giles Corey, which is like a um, you really couldn't play it full band. And same with I have a song called Water Damage that people also seem to like, and those are just very simple like singer songwriter kind of songs, um, and because they're like finger picking, I think that people are kind of like, oh wow, like your playing's really good, or like I was really impressed by that song because there's kind of something else to show them. But when I play the finger on the pulse songs um, by myself, or even like by myself and with Tom, like with just the lead guitar player, I don't think that those hit as hard as they do with the band. But when I play those songs with the full band, there seems to be like a vision. I can see a visual reaction of like audiences being like, "Oh wow, like this is sick." Like I can tell that they seem to enjoy it. Whereas with the acoustic stuff, like it's like it's very serious and people have to be quiet. So like it's hard to get a read sometimes. People are just kind of like staring at you as you're, playing this quiet song. So yeah, I'd say overall full band is definitely the way to go, or people seem to be more into the full band stuff. Especially actually I just want to add one more thing, especially like in Philly because Philly's like kind of a tough scene, and I think that like here, like punk and hardcore seem to be the thing. And like I just put out Plastic Fangs, and everyone from the area is like, "Oh, when can like Plastic Fangs is like your best song yet?" And it's funny because it's like has a very like rock intro,
Yeah.
and people love that. And I'm just like, to me, I'm like, I like it. It sounds very like Radiohead, like the Bends. Like that's kind of what I was like envisioning when I did it. And people really like that one, and I was like, oh, that's great, but it's definitely not the direction the project is going in necessarily. So
Well,
enjoy enjoy your one off,
if it makes you feel better, I of the two, they're both great, but I prefer Eyes to the Sky.
Oh, thanks. Nice.
Yeah. So
Thanks.
yeah, they're both awesome songs, but there's just this I don't know, like there's just this feeling that like when it starts out that I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna like this.
Right.
Like this is gonna put me in a good spot.
Thanks. Yeah, I really like Eyes to the Sky. It's kind of like a marathon of a song because there's like a lot of it's like you have like a verse chorus thing, but then it gets to the bridge, and there's sort of like it's like bridge into like an outro, or it's like bridge part one and two, and then there's an outro.
Yeah, I thought it was two different songs. I was just like,
Yeah,
oh, it's a different, and I'm like, look at it, I was like, oh, this is still.
yeah, that was kind of like for that song. A couple things happened. Like when I was younger, I played in a pop punk band, and I would write a lot of songs like that where it was kind of a bunch of different parts that weren't necessarily like the beginning would be way different from the end. And for that song I definitely like regressed to some of my old songwriting kind of things that I would do, and people they really like it. For the most part with Tonks I try to stick a little bit more to like the indie folk kind of thing. But for this song, I was like, you know what? Like, I can kind of revert to some of my old, pop punk, emo, whatever kind of stuff you want to call it. Like, they're definitely like some of that influence made its way back in, and it sounds good. People like it, I guess.
What band were you in back in the day?
Oh, nothing notable. When I was in high school, I was in like a pop punk band called Exit 34 with Brad and some of my other friends, and um,
It's a South Jersey band, right? Yeah,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure I had heard it. I don't think we ever played together, but I was aware of your band's existence.
we played the auction house a couple times, which I think you probably would have been to at some point.
I've been
Um,
to the auction house, but I think that at that point, when the auction house became a venue, the band that I was in with Joe and Joe from Sleep In, was we had gone kind of our separate ways. Because I
yeah,
think at that point he was doing Ides of June, and they all played together. Like,
yeah.
so
Because I remember we played a show there with Nate Pose. You know Nate Posen, right?
yeah.
His band, like Collisions or whatever, I think, played
Y-
there at one of the shows that we did.
Yeah, that's the band that eventually became Sleep In, and that was after. Yeah, so that was all kind of at the same time. Like, yeah, and that sort of he started a new band called Nominee,
Hmm.
and he's no longer with them. But like, I don't know if you remember Chris McClellan from was it I Call Fives?
Doesn't ring a bell off the top of my head. I feel bad if I do know him, and
Yeah. Well, no.
sometimes I need to see the person in context. I think.
Well, I know that that band got like really popular, or touring all over the country and whatnot. But hopefully, I'll be talking to him shortly too. So I'm happy about that.
Nice.
But
But yeah, I was in like a pop punk band when I was younger, and I think with this song, suddenly I was just kind of like, I'm gonna like let go a little bit and just kind of like autopilot versus like a lot of Tonks songs. I purposefully make it a little bit more like simple and acoustic and whatever. But for this song, I was like, I can write like a full band song on the acoustic and just let it be like fully written for a full band versus like there isn't a good way to strip that song down, I don't think.
so this is very left. Tell me about the name, because I was on YouTube, like I'm searching you up, and all I kept seeing were like these clips of like this very attractive character from like Harry Potter or something like that.
Yeah, that's what it came from. I mean that's what the name was inspired from. Um, uh, yeah, it's not necessarily it's hard because I don't want people to think like, oh, it's like a Harry Potter themed band, you know what I mean? But um, Tonks is like a B list character in the Harry Potter series that if you're not like a fan, you probably wouldn't even know like who she is. But she's like a shapeshifter. Um, she's able to kind of like I don't know. There's like a scene from one of the movies that I think your average Harry Potter watcher would remember, but she kind of like is making everyone laugh by like she turns her nose into like a pig nose. Um, she can just kind of like change her hair whenever she feels like it and whatever. And that was sort of the thought was that I was going to do this project Tonks and I wanted the ability to kind of like shift and write whatever I wanted without any like boundaries or um, it's just kind of like something where I was like, oh, this band is going to be just like a forever changing, forever like I'm just going to do whatever I feel like doing. And that's kind of like where I got the name from. And I wanted it to be something where people knew that it was one person versus a full band. Um, there was like a little bit of vanity to when I first did it. Was I was like, oh, I don't want to just use my name, but I want it to be. I want people to be like, oh, is it a guy or is it a band? You know what I mean? So
I feel
yeah,
that because when I started my own project, that was why I came up with the name I did. So I could be, it'd be something where if I showed up as one person, or if I showed up with like, if I got a band together, like I could do, or if like people left, like it would be something that could go on and on, sort of ambiguous.
Yeah, I have some like acquaintances from music that just call me Tonks. Like me, Ian, the person, they just will call me Tonks, and I like don't correct anyone. I just am like, yeah, whatever. Like it's sort of like when people, you know, call Justin Vernon like Bonnie Iver when it's like that's the name of the project. His name is not, Bonnie Iver or whatever. Like there's like certain things where it's kind of just like, oh yeah, like I don't know. To me, it doesn't matter. It's part of my identity, and I like. Not that I like that when people confuse it, but if they do call me that, it does kind of feel like, yeah, why not? That's it. It was me for such a long time. Now it's a band, but it was just me, and I was like cool with that.
I just learned that little tidbit fact from Bonnie Iver, so thanks for that. Uh,
His name. That's just Justin Vernon is just the guy. It's just him. He has a band, but originally, like he did all of his stuff by himself.
well, that's a good segue into my next question. Like, tell tell me, anyone listening, about Ian outside of Tonks. Who are you outside of that? Just as a person.
That's a big mystery. I don't know. I just am. I attach so much of my identity to music, so it's like a little bit hard. Just grew up in Jersey. I've always played in bands. I was like mildly athletic in my early years, and I think around age like 9 or 10, everything. I mean, well, I will say I always had to kind of play music. My parents put me and my siblings, in violin lessons when we were like I think 4 years old or something, like 3 or 4 years old. Um, Three, they put us in generic music classes where you would like play xylophone and like sing little songs and stuff. And then at age 4, they put us in violin lessons. Um, so I kind of started just picking up my dad's guitar. He plays, and I would kind of play that in rebellion to practicing violin. Um, and around 9 or 10, like, I was kind of like doing sports, doing stuff like that. And my brother gave me like a burnt CD that was just like stuff he got off the internet. And it was like Green Day, Blink, Offspring, like Bush, like just this collection of just 90s alternative stuff. And I was like, oh damn, like I think I want this to be my whole personality. And just like overnight was just like, all right, this is sick. I got to go out and buy Converse now. I got to dress like a skater, and like just got heavy into alternative stuff. And then that was it. That was really from that point forward, that was just my personality forever. Took a break from music when I like went to college. I went to Westchester. But even while I was there, I was like starting to write the songs that would be Tonks songs eventually. And yeah, outside of Tonks, I'm just a guy I have a regular job. I work like for a tech company. I have like a 9 to 5 that I do. Yeah, I don't know. Outside, that's a hard question because outside of music, that really is kind of my full identity. I'm super into aliens. I think that's it. That's all I got. Music, and then on the side, I like watching, alien documentaries and reading books about UFOs and stuff like that.
I was just thinking last night. I put on space documentaries to fall asleep, right? And
Perfect.
like, because I love space documentaries, and I was telling some people this, and one of them was like, I think you just say that to sound smart, as if like I don't actually do that. And then another person was like
Oh no.
Excuse me. Then my other friends are like, "Oh, really? What's your favorite galaxy?" Like, what? like, just like me asking you, what's your favorite noodle and a bowl of spaghetti?
Right. You're also just like, I said I fall asleep to it. I didn't say I was studying it, you know?
Right. Right. And it's like, I know what a galaxy is and what a collection of galaxies are. Like, I know things about space. So, like, doesn't mean that, like, I've decided to adopt a galaxy. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. No, I do the same thing. I think it kind of like the older you get and the more like jaded you become by things like aliens, UFOs, space, like all that stuff has kind of like reopened me up to like just kind of being like, oh, there's a lot of stuff I don't know, you know, because I think like you get life kind of shows you the same things over and over again at some point, and you just kind of like you walk down the street, you're like, oh, there's a tree, there's a building, like I know what all this stuff is. Like I can Google anything and have every answer that I ever want at the tips of my fingers. So you become kind of like complacent. So thinking about, you know, trying to give myself more mysteries to think about helps me like not be depressed, I think.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I am sometimes I have that. You ever seen that picture of like the person where it's like the front of them and then the back of them is all black and like kind of like nebulous and like you don't like I feel that sometimes. I'm just like when I see a picture of the back of me, am I just filling in my head what I think should be there, but there's nothing there? And no, I sound crazy, but but
I understand what you mean. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah. Um, Dude, thank you so much for taking your time out and coming and chat with me today. We're running a little low on time, so why don't you tell the world anything that you feel like um you wanted to share, didn't get a chance to, where to find you online, how to get in touch,
You know,
anything?
I think everything is just socials or like Tonks PHL. Spotify, just look up Tonks. All my stuff's on there. Have a Bandcamp. We got merch up. And yeah, just my Instagram's probably where I post the most about shows and stuff like that. So that's probably your best choice. And then, yeah, new songs coming out. I think what was it? I literally posted today. I think October. I have this new song coming out, and that will be on October 15th. So yeah, I have a song 96 Camry, and that'll be out on October 15th. So keep an eye out for that. That's it, man.
Awesome. Thanks again for hanging out with me here on Beyond the Static. Remember, you can follow the podcast on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, and TikTok at Beyond the Static Podcast. You could also join our mailing list and have these episodes sent straight to your inbox. If you enjoyed the show and feel gracious, you can buy me a coffee. If not, a like or comment on YouTube is much appreciated. A 5-star review on any platform would be awesome, because in the words of my hero, Bomani Jones,
If you only give us 4 stars, I'm inclined to believe you are a hater.
thanks again, guys. Enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening. And remember, I appreciate you more than you will ever know.